So I feel like the Constitution was completely ignored. And I paid the price for trying to exercise my rights in court. Within the walls of justice, apparently there is no justice. I am Christopher Pierce, a newly declared citizen of the North Carolina American Republic. I was cited for an expired registration. Basically, my first day in court where the case was heard was this past Monday, July 19th. I went into court on special appearance to challenge jurisdiction, not to refute the charge against me. The question of jurisdiction comes up because based on an historical precedent, the period of Reconstruction where the first state of North Carolina was annulled and a new state was created in the same border, within the same borders of the original state, we have now in modern times the 39th state, which is purportedly in authority, and they're claiming that they have the jurisdiction within the borders of the state of North Carolina. However, being a citizen of the first state, not within the jurisdiction of the second state, which is not a lawfully created state. Well, I presented a notice of pre-arraignment, a notice of pre-arraignment to challenge jurisdiction, and I presented that notice in court. The judge reviewed the document for about 30 seconds at most, and I don't believe he read past the first page, and he basically dismissed the argument and stated that the motion was denied. The judge offered no proof, no evidence. Basically, he had just denied the motion. It wasn't a motion at all. I was challenging jurisdiction, but no motion required. I was told to have a seat, essentially. I was called back. I was pressured into stating whether I had legal representation. I was told if I pursued the argument, the jurisdictional argument, that I'd be held in contempt of court. I again mentioned the jurisdictional challenge. I mentioned the citizenship, and I'm not a citizen of the 39th state. If there is no other remedy, then I suppose I must speak for myself, represent myself, however they want to put it, and the arraignment proceeded. The decision made by the judge was that I was guilty of the offense, and that was it. I was fined $211. I believe that my license was suspended. I appealed the decision in open court, and I was handcuffed, and a secure bond of $500 was placed upon me, and I was taken out of the courtroom in handcuffs. I was taken out of the court by the bailiff. Never been in jail before, so I had no idea about this process. And I was put in a holding cell. For some time, I asked officer after officer, when do I get a phone call? You know, what's the situation with this bond? I don't have $500. You know, what am I supposed to do? The court date that I was presented with was August 30th, and I'm thinking, if I don't have $500, am I supposed to be incarcerated until August 30th? And this is July 19th, so I'm thinking this is like a month and a half, essentially, where I might have to be in jail. Each time I was in the holding cell, could be a half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Any officer any officer I was asking a question to, I would get different responses as to when I was getting a phone call. I would see a magistrate. I was told to enter another cell. This was the immigration cell, apparently, where I was with deportees that were going to Haiti or Mexico, and I clearly wasn't in immigration. I wasn't being deported. But nonetheless, even after I mentioned it to a couple officers that were opening the cell door, look, I'm not being deported. I'm not with immigration. Why am I in this cell? I was finally brought out of the immigration holding cell and told that there was a bail bondsman looking for me. Clearly, it was a very disorganized system where if the bail bondsman was looking for me, I'm not even sure if the officers could tell them where I was. I basically had about 4 numbers in my head that I knew I could call. I had trouble getting through to anybody. I did get in touch with a bail bondsman. However, it sounded like they couldn't help me until the morning, so it looked like I might be in jail overnight. I was basically brought into a pod, and in which I was to stay the night. 1 person per cell, small bunk, toilet, sink, very small window. I was there until about 2 in the morning when I received a voice over an intercom that bail had been posted and I was free to go. I didn't know where this bond originated from. So I'm asking the officer, how does this bond work? And if I sign this, am I responsible for $500? And as I'm looking over some of the terms of this bond, I see that my name is misspelled. So I say just simply, look, I want to get out of here. I want to leave. But is it a problem that my name is misspelled? And may I look at the document and read some of the terms so that I'm more familiar with what I'm signing? The form was taken away from me. The officer informed me that she would have to correct this error and that I would be returning to the pod. The party that was there waiting for me were informed that I refused to sign the document, and they were sent away. I was sent back up to the pod where I stayed the night. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning for breakfast, which I didn't eat. I hadn't eaten pretty much since noon the previous day. This 4:30 comes and goes. Go back to the cells, 6:30. You're supposed to wake up for shift change. But I was basically told at 9 o'clock when I went down there for the second time to the release area, I was told, all right, well, give us 20 minutes and, you'll be out of here, essentially. I'm not called back to the release area for another 2 hours. And finally, around 11:30, I was able to get the bond, look at it, understand what I was signing, sign the bond, receive my possessions, my clothing, change out of the inmate clothing, the jumpsuit. When I walked out of that place, it was almost 24 hours after I entered the courtroom the previous day. So it was essentially an entire day was just used up by this court date that should have only taken a few hours at most. I simply went into court to ask a simple question. Prove that you're lawful, prove that you have jurisdiction. I'm not a citizen of your state, but I'm here, I'm responding to your claim. Just give me some proof and some evidence, and I will gladly abide by your laws, and I'll proceed with this arraignment. I was thrown in jail when I appealed the decision. It's my constitutional right to appeal the decision. I'm not glad that it happened, but in a way, it was a good thing. It was a really eye-opening experience for me. I learned very much from the experience. The Constitution is the law of the land, and it's certainly not the supreme law in the court. It seems like the court can do as it pleases. If we can just return to lawful government, you wouldn't have the situation of the nationalization of citizenship if the Constitution was in full force and effect. You wouldn't have someone's rights being suspended.